Hello, it's Katie, back with episode 4 of my environmental education series. For this episode, we are going to focus on a true Appalachian delicacy, and that is ramps. I've heard a lot of people talking about ramps this year and how important they are and the fact that they're at risk, and so I think that it's really important to just continue talking about that. So even though I've been seeing everybody else sharing stuff, which makes me super happy, I'm still going to talk about it as well, because that's how we can save at-risk species, is by knowledge and, letting people know proper ethical harvesting practices. And ramps are one that I want to see around forever. So I'm just going to go ahead and get into it. So this is a ramp patch here. They are, so easy to spot in the spring. You'll just be walking along and see on a hillside, it's just covered in a sea of green. And that's just one of the most beautiful things. Ramps traditionally have been eaten for years in Appalachia because it's one of the first green vegetables that comes up that you can eat. So the ramps that grow here in Ohio are Allium trichocum. They are a wild leek or a wild onion, and they are absolutely delicious. You can smell them whenever you're near them. Like right now it just smells like onions. So for identification purposes, they normally grow on hillsides, kind of lush areas here in Appalachia, and the leaves, as you can see, they normally have 2 leaves per plant. Some have 3. I'm trying to get a good one here. So here's kind of a good one to show you. And then these leaves are very oblong, and they're kind of rubbery as well. Very, very rubbery leaves. Very broad, kind of, like an elongated egg shape. I know that some people do mistake some other plants for ramps, but once you've harvested a ramp, you'll know for sure that that's it. It also kind of has, these ones I'm not seeing it quite so much, but normally along the base there's kind of a bit of burgundy color or red. And then they have a white bulb underneath the ground. So what is the problem with ramps and why I want to talk about them today? So ramps are actually at risk. And I know that to a lot of people in Appalachia, it probably doesn't seem like that's the case, because you'll be walking along and see, these huge patches like this, and you would never think that this is something that you would have to be like, oh, I couldn't harvest, half of that or something. But the problem is that ramps have a really long reproductive cycle. So it actually takes them about 7 years from the time that they start growing to reproduce. And then even after that, it can take a year to a year and a half for those seeds to then germinate, and then 7 years after that. So sometimes it can be 8 to 8.5 years before one single seed of a ramp actually starts to produce another one. So the problem is that if someone comes along and digs up half of this patch of ramp bulbs, it's probably not going to grow back for about another 8 years. And I think that that's what a lot of people really need to realize right now. Kind of this sense of abundance, and it looks like we have a ton of it, but the culinary industry is using ramps like crazy now because they are so delicious. But that has, caused a lot of harm and put a lot of pressure on, these fields in Appalachia where they're growing like crazy. And I even see a lot of signs along the road and stuff for people buying them. And I completely understand, it might seem like a good way to make a buck. Go dig up some ramps in a local holler and, sell them to the guy down the road. However, I highly encourage you to not do that. Because if we all dig ramps like that, then, in the next 10, 15, 20 years, we might not have hardly any at all. Oops, ran into a tree there. But yeah, so basically, what is an ethical harvesting technique of ramps? Glad you asked. So whenever you look at a field of ramps like this, you want to take just one leaf. I have sharp fingernails, so I can just kind of do like that. Or if you have a knife or pruners or something on you, you can use those as well to make like a clean cut. And just take one leaf per plant that has at least 2 leaves. Because some of the plants, when they're still small, they only have 1 leaf. And then the leaves will get bigger as they're older too. So some of these are really big and really broad, you know, and I think that it's totally okay to take 1 leaf from, you know, a stand. So whenever I walk away from this stand, I want it to look like I wasn't even here at all. Like I want someone else to be able to walk here and look at this and still see an abundant ramp patch. And so I've been going along the hillside here and harvesting some. I've got my little basket, been finding some morels and some ramps, and I'm going to take these leaves back home with me. And I got some walnuts and cheese and olive oil, and I'm going to make some ramp pesto. Highly encourage it. The leaves still have that really strong onion flavor to them, so there's really no need to dig the bulb. Although the bulbs are very, very delicious, you know, it's much more respectful and important to just leave those in the ground. And, you know, if you're interested in harvesting ramp bulbs and using ramp bulbs, I would highly suggest reaching out to someone. Like here locally in Athens, we have Rural Action, and you can actually buy ramp bulbs from them, and you could potentially plant your own stand. So, you know, if you have like your own forest farming patch of them and you want to keep planting every year and harvesting a couple, that's what I would suggest doing if you're someone who really loves ramps and you know that you want those bulbs. But I would really, really highly suggest, you know, not putting any more pressure on our wild patches that we have out here in Appalachia. If you have any other questions about ramps or anything else, just let me know. Yeah, well, thank you all for tuning in, and I hope that you're really enjoying these environmental education series, and I will talk to you soon.